Right. Let's get started then. Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another exciting webinar from the Change Leader series Break Free. So today we'll be looking at the topic, Idea to App Store, Expert Strategies for a Frictionless Mobile App Testing. My name is Geraldine, and I'll be your host for today. So before we get started, I would like to go over a few housekeeping rules. Your line is currently muted, but don't worry, you can submit your questions during the webinar through the chat option that you see at the end of your screen. And we'll answer your questions as a part of the Q&A section at the end of the webinar. And please note that this webinar is currently being recorded, and we'll send out the link of the recording through an email so that you can have a watch later or share it with your friends and colleagues. So with that being said, let me quickly share a bit about the Break Free series. Next slide, please. Yeah, thanks. Break Free was an idea that burst out of the need for change in the testing domain. Next slide, please. So we've seen the testing industry evolve and grow over the decades as a few leaders took the risk to break free from traditional approaches towards testing and come up with new ideas and practices. And we believe that this change can be accelerated at a much faster pace. So we took the liberty of identifying and inviting a few change leaders for breaking the mold and embracing change to see the QA industry evolve. And that's what Break Free is all about. Our hope is that these sessions would spark ideas in each one of you to be the change that's needed in the QA industry for the industry to grow into greater leaps and bounds. So with that, let me welcome the change leader for today, Daniel Knott. Daniel is an expert in the field of mobile testing and quality engineering. He's currently serving as the head of product quality engineering at Mayborn Wolf in Germany, where he plays a key role in shaping the future of testing for his clients. So with over 14 plus years of experience as lead software test engineer for various native mobile apps and products, Daniel brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise for this webinar. So in addition to his professional experience, Daniel has also made significant contributions to the testing community. He's the author of 2 books, Hands-on Mobile App Testing and Smartwatch App Testing. And he's also a frequent blogger at adventuresinqa.com. He's a sought-after conference speaker and has recently created his YouTube channel about software testing. So without any further ado, let me hand it over to the speaker for today, Daniel.
Thank you, Geraldine. Hi, and welcome to the webinar for today. I'm really excited to be here, and thank you so much for the really nice introduction. So we can at least skip one slide, which is the introduction of myself. So yeah, let's get started for today. Today I would like to talk about with you about mobile, why mobile testing is still a challenging topic and how you can overcome those challenges. And here's a quick look at the agenda. So basically, at the beginning, I would like to give you a quick update on the current mobile market, what are like really impressive numbers, I have to say. I would like to talk about the mobile user. Why is it important to talk about the mobile user? I would like to talk about some challenges in mobile testing, how you can test against different testing scenarios for mobile, how to scale mobile testing across your organization or within your team, and how to release a mobile product frequently in order to have a successful and high quality app in front of your customers. And last but not least, I'm going to share some key takeaways. So let's get started. The current mobile market is still growing. There's a number from 2020 is that in 2020, more than 1 billion devices have been sold. And this number is still increasing, which I think is tremendous, because keeping in mind that we have iOS and Android since more than, 15 years now, 16 years on the market, and the ecosystems are still growing. So that's cool. By end of this year, more than 6 billion people on this planet will use a smartphone. It's also a huge number. So there's a huge potential in building your own apps, building your services for mobile product. Also, by the end of this year, the mobile app revenue alone will be like above $935 billion, which is also like a big potential for your revenues for selling your product on a mobile device. On the other side, we have on Apple and on Google, so on iOS and on the Play Store, we have more than 4 million apps. It's I would say it's a small number compared to the big numbers that we have seen in the beginning, like 6 billion people using a smartphone, 1 billion devices have been sold, and we have only 4 million apps in the app stores. But it's only talking about apps that you can install from those stores. We're not talking about mobile web pages, which comes on top of that. What else? 21% of the millennials open their app more than 50 times per day. This is a quite impressive number. I would say it's like every couple of hours they are like opening it up and checking what's the current status. Yeah. Almost 70% of the US digital media time comes from mobile apps. It's also an impressive number. And with mobile apps, I mean, it's like native apps, not mobile browsers. So also there's a huge potential in terms of getting user engagement, selling products, and making revenues. An average smartphone user, so this is now in comparison to the millennials, uses 10 apps per day and only 30 each month. So that the number of apps that a user has installed on his or her mobile device is not too large, actually, compared to, again, to the 4 million apps available. And this is because I also talk to many people on conferences, also in the testing industry, and also to clients, is that they don't like to have too many apps on their device, because they would like to use only high quality apps and with a high quality that brings value to them. And they're really picky in terms of what is running on their mobile device. And we come to that in a second, why they are so picky. And last but not least, some numbers that in 2020, there were more than 150 million app downloads on both of the biggest app stores that we have. Also quite impressive number. Okay, so that's so far for the current mobile market, just to give you some perspective and some numbers that this market is still growing. Because when I talk sometimes to people that are a bit like, hey, mobile is not growing anymore. The devices, they don't have like really cool new features. Yes, the devices from a hardware perspective, they are more or less settled at the moment on a plateau. Not too many innovations, but from a software perspective, there's still huge potential. So, and with that, I would like to talk quickly about why mobile technology changed our lives. And maybe you see yourself in those patterns or in those examples that I brought for you today. Here's an example. So this is the Pope election in 2005. On top, you can see that almost nobody was using his or her mobile device to actually take photos. And then only 8 years later, the humanity, or like the people, they're consuming everything through their mobile device. And this, when I saw the first time this picture, I was impressed, like, oh my God, what has happened to us? You know, we're just using our mobile devices everywhere to capture every moment. And this is actually something that this technology changed our life. And here's another nice example that I found and I would like to share with you today, is that in 1999, 80 billion photos have been taken on film by Kodak mainly. Yeah, so that by plain old film. So you took a photo, went to a shop, and then you had a physical image to your hand. And then a couple of years later, jump now to 2015. Usually I ask the audience, hey, what do you think? Well, how many photos have been taken or on a mobile device? But now in the webinar, I can't ask you the question. I will just show you the number. And I think it's really impressive, because in 2015, 2 trillion photos have been shared online. That's impressive. That's an amazing number, right? It's mind-blowing, I would say, because it's the interesting part is in the name shared. So only 2 trillion photos have been shared online. Now imagine how many photos have been taken before in order to share something. I mean, look at yourself, like how many pictures are you doing and like taking before you select one image that you would like to share online. So this number is even bigger. And this shows you, or should show you actually, how mobile devices have changed our lives. And these are just like 2 examples. I mean, look at yourself. Nowadays, we can do everything with our mobile device, from travel booking to banking to insurance to, I don't know, order something, buy something online, everything you can do with your mobile device. That's why it's important. We have to talk about the quality. This brings us to the first topic for today, is the mobile user. So before you start working or before you start developing a mobile app, you should be clear about the mobile user and what your customer is all about, because this is a key important fact when you would like to work in mobile and testing for mobile. I have some numbers as well. Mobile users have a really high expectation when it comes to mobile products. So the first one is that an average adult checks every 12 minutes their smartphone. impressive, right? So it's also compared to the millennials. 88% of overall smartphone time is spent on apps, also impressive. 80% of users delete an app after the first usage, and this is really tough one. What does it mean? So if users expect or like see the first time they download an app, see any hiccup, any reasons that they don't like it, they're going to delete it, and 80% is a quite large number of users. And this brings me to the next topic here. The top 4 reasons for deleting an app is a bad design, bad usability, long loading times, and app crashes. So whenever you ship your product in front of a customer, be aware of those 4 top reasons that your app might get deleted. So I can count myself into this bad usability, for example. I hate it when apps are not usable. Like I don't understand what they would like to have, or if they require a login or registration up front and so forth. Yeah, or it crashes. Then I also go just delete it and go jump to the next app, because there's always at least 1 or 2 competitor apps out there on the app stores that a user can go to. Also quite impressive number is that nearly 60% of users will delete an app if it requires a registration. So over the course of the year, since we have mobile apps out there since 2009, we have the Apple App Store, and users got lazy in terms of signing up to new services. So whenever you have something that the user has to sign up for, keep it in mind that you should add something like a trial period, or that requires no registration, show movies up front that explain the product and so forth. So don't just blindly show the user a registration form. If the likelihood is really high, that person will go away. And last but not least, mobile users expect an app that loads under 2 seconds. So it's also important. Speed really matters. And also, again, maybe you notice it yourself when you're on the move in the wild out there, maybe commuting on a train, and you pick up your mobile device. You just would like to check where the next train departs from which track and so forth. And you start the app and it takes ages to load. And while the app is loading, you maybe miss your train. This is nothing a user will do once. Yeah, so that's why important. Speed matters, quality matters for mobile products. And whenever you start in a mobile team and you know that mobile users have a high expectation, it's important to gather some information. So get to know your customers. Yeah, so that's what I usually do. Is like the first thing I ask basically is get information about the user needs and the preferences. So what are our user base? Yeah, so where are they living? What are they doing? Which apps are they using? And so forth and so forth. What I do is whenever we have a marketing department or sales or customer support department, I talk to them. If we don't have that departments in your company, you can use market data. So collect data from market research, studies, or even you have tracking implemented. Maybe you would like to implement or start to work on a mobile app, and you have already a running web product. That's perfect. You have tracking data in most of the cases there. Use this data to see what kind of devices is your audience using, what are they doing with other devices and other apps. That's really important. And also ask the customer, hey, what do you like to know about a product? How would you like to use our product on a mobile device? That's important. And with all this knowledge, it's important then to outline the most important scenarios for you and for your team and make this transparent. What are the most used scenarios? What are the customers asking for? And then make this transparent. It will help a lot in defining user stories, creating acceptance criteria, developing against those, and also test against those. And then, of course, focus on the user base. Yeah, that's important. Something you have to keep in mind. And then, as the last point here is, whenever you have this data available in your team, in your company, you as a tester, you can plan your testing activities around this data. This is so helpful. Yeah, it will narrow down fragmentation. We'll come to that in a second. It will narrow down the complexity of automation. It will also narrow down the complexity of the test environment and so forth and so forth. So getting to know your customers, from my point of view, is key to have a successful product out there in front of your customers. Okay, so what's next? The mobile testing challenges. Yeah, so what are actually the challenges that I would like to talk about for you or in this webinar is I brought 3 challenges. So for those of you who are already working in mobile, you know there are more challenges out there that you have to cover, but I would like to highlight 3 of them today. So here they are. First one is fragmentation. The second one is I would like to talk about sensors. And the last one is I would like to talk about test automation, because I have seen so many mistakes made in teams when starting with test automation and doing it especially for mobile. So let's take a look at fragmentation. I bet fragmentation, you have heard about it. I mean, this picture already indicates it, that fragmentation was a big topic on Android. Yeah, so this is a fragmentation report from OpenSignal. It's quite old. It's from 2014, but it should give you an example what Android fragmentation is all about. So we are on Android side, we have lots of different manufacturers building lots of different devices with different screen resolutions, with different hardware and software combinations. And this poses an extreme challenge to mobile teams. Because depending on your customer base, you need to test against those different devices. And it's absolutely not possible, right? To test on all the different hardware and device combinations. And I brought an example how you can overcome this challenge. On the other side, back then, let's say in 2010 or 11 or 12, when working with iOS teams, they were always laughing at Android saying, haha, we don't have this topic on iOS fragmentation, because back then there was only one iPhone. iPads was just introduced back then, and there was no such thing as fragmentation. But this has changed as well. So this is not to update its screenshot, but you can see here we have also different screen resolutions. So we have from the iPhone SE to the iPhone 12 mini in this example, and we now have the iPhone 14 with the dynamic island. So we have different form factors, different screen sizes, resolutions, and I missed to put the iPad's devices here as well. So we have also fragmentation topic on the iOS side, but it's not too hard to overcome like on Android, because iOS is really, or Apple is really good in rolling out updates to the customer. So whenever there's a new iOS update, you get at least for 6 years old, 6-year devices, you get updates. So you always have the latest operating system. So the hard device-ware combination is not a hard topic, but on Android still is a topic. Yeah. So fragmentation is a key thing to think about and to deal with. And as I promised, I brought a solution that you can use, that I have used also in the past when working with many mobile devices to find the right device to test against those devices. And the idea is that what I've done is I created mobile device groups. So I created basically always 3 groups depending on the customer target base. So I just open up the 3 groups here. Yeah, so we have group 1, we have group 2, and we have group C. All of them, they have a different priority. So we have priority 1 in group 1, B, and C. And depending on the on my target group, on the target customers, what I've done in the beginning, the research, I know that, for example, in this example, that most of my users, the high potential customers bringing lots of revenues in, they fit in this category group 1 with highest priority. So they have high-end devices and with a super powerful hardware, latest software. Group B is still important for me, but the devices have like a mid-range devices that they are not so powerful and so forth. And group C are like, smaller devices, lower hardware capacity, and also older operating system versions. But I still see them in my statistics that they are like maybe like below 10% of usage. Yeah. And what I've done then, I have those 3 groups depending on my customer target group. And then I select the devices that I see in the tracking or in the app stores, for example, devices that are used. And then in each group, I put 10 to 15 devices to put them in there. And then when I perform my manual testing, my normal testing activities, from each group, I pick maximum 2 to 3 devices, and I use them for manual testing and test against those requirements. Because then I know, okay, if the software is running on those devices, I have at least 80 and 90% of everything covered. So there's not too many things that can go wrong. Yeah. When you work with automation, it's a different topic, because sometimes it's hard, to select the devices and put them to a server or a CI/CD pipeline. In that case, I always use device clouds, such as Pcloudy, for example. So you can select all the different device combinations from Pcloudy, put them into your CI/CD pipeline, and then run your test automation against those devices. You can also use it for manual testing, but I prefer for manual testing, I prefer a real device, because that's you feel the product in your hands, how it feels in terms of performance, of responsiveness, and so forth. Yeah. So this is a really easy solution to overcome the device fragmentation. building device groups in combination with device clouds, that's a perfect thing. And you can just go ahead and work with that one. So now that we talked about device fragmentation, let's jump to device sensors. As you can see, there are like lots of sensors here in this example. So most of the devices, not all of the devices have all the sensors that are written down here, but like modern devices, they have a face ID, so face unlock. They have ambient light sensor, they have a proximity sensor, location-based sensor, magnetic pressure, fingerprint, gyroscope. I'm just reading out all of them. So they're packed with multiple sensors. And depending on your app, if your app is using those sensors, you have also to test against those sensors, yeah, in order to be sure that everything works out. So a good example is, for example, the acceleration sensor, which is responsible for rotating from landscape to portrait mode. So this is basically a sensor that is packed in every mobile device. And also your app should support those events. So this sensor, because if your mobile product is used in landscape mode and in portrait mode, this is really a cool thing for the user. But what happens if you rotate, let's say 20, 40 times? I found only bug back then. We had a loading spinner on our screen, and I just was doing like this movement, rotating device from portrait to landscape mode, and out of nowhere, the circle loading indicator became an ellipse. You know, it was always calculated on the screen rotation, on the redraw of the screen. And so this was a bug basically, because we were like doing something wrong with the calculation based on the orientation of the phone. Or for example, location-based sensor is a good example, working with GPS. So if you're working for a product that uses the GPS, you have to test in different environments. And we come to that in a second on the testing scenarios. Yeah. So this is important to keep in mind. The sensors, they have a high challenge that you have to think of. Also, maybe it's important to note down what kind of software product features you have implemented, and what are the sensors being used on your mobile device. So what is the hardware that we're using in order to create the product? So it's important. And also based on that, you can derive testing activities and also different mobile devices again. So that's what I just mentioned, is like know which sensors are used by your product. Create a strategy, how and where you will test against the different sensors. Because if we just go back, I mean, not all of the devices, they have a humidity sensor. Maybe this is a sensor that you find in outdoor devices that you can use while, I don't know, going on an expedition, for example. I bet not too many apps are using this sensor, but it's important to know, hey, which sensors are we using, and to create a strategy around that. Yeah, if you don't have the sensor in the app, or it's not being used, and you don't build against those sensors, you don't have to test them. Yeah. This is also important then to keep the device groups in mind and verify against those devices. So having the list of devices and then also the sensors is important to have it in the device group. And then of course, test the app in the real environment before each release, because the sensors, they usually interact with the surrounding environment. So I think I come to that in a second. And an example is the GPS topic. If you go in a city center with high building with lots of metal and frame and concrete, the connection is usually not that good, right? So that's why it's important to test in different environments, being outside in the countryside, being on top of a mountain, being in a valley. What is going to happen with your mobile device, and how is your mobile app reacting to that, right? Is your app is showing the correct error message, for example, or is it crashing, or what's going to happen? Yeah, you never know. That's something you should keep in mind and test for. Okay, and last but not least, the challenge I would like to talk about is automation. Whenever I talk to teams and also to clients and customers, like they usually put up the frame like, hey, let's automate everything. But it's not possible. Yeah, this is absolutely not possible. And there is also no silver bullet. That's always something that I tell them, because sometimes they tend to select the most hyped tool that is available in the market. Hey, let's go for, I don't know, Appium, let's go for Maestro, let's go for whatever's out there. But this might not be the right tool for you. Yeah, so that's why I'm going to put the topic here of there is no silver bullet. Every tool has its pros and cons. So it's important to start simple with automation. Yeah, so to really to think about like, what are the things that we need to automate? What are the critical parts, the most important parts for our business? What is bringing the revenue, and so forth and so forth. A risk assessment here is always helpful to actually start the conversation. Yeah. Then what also important is automation should support your testing activities. It should never replace testing. That's important to keep in mind. Yeah. Whenever I use mobile testing or testing in general, test automation in general, it should help me as a software tester to have more time to think about the tough challenges on the product. Yeah. To see what are the things, especially when you have transitions from one product to another on the API side, for example, or what are, like, let's say, non-functional requirements like security or accessibility. This is usually something that you can automate, but to some extent only. And using test automation will help me in order to have more time to do the real hard things in our product development cycle. Yeah. Also, one important thing is you need to invest time to find the right test automation tool that fits your needs and requirements. Yeah, that's also important. That's what I meant also before with never just pick the hype tool. Yeah, maybe the first thing that you should do is you should make a list of the technology used in your product. So what is your tech stack? What is the backend system? What's the API? What does the front-end system look like? Which technologies, which programming languages are we using? And based on that information, you should create a selection criteria catalog, for example. So define some questions or some questions that you would like to ask the tool. Hey, can you handle this? Can you handle that? And then make a list, a bullet point list and checklist saying, okay, the tool has to fulfill at least the top 5 of my checks here before it fits into our category. Yeah, and if you do that, if you invest this time up front, you will save a lot of time later on, because then you can, once you have decided the right tool for your environment, you can start writing and automating against those things. And then, of course, invest time into your CI/CD pipeline and the testing infrastructure. Yeah, there's also what I've seen in the past is, yeah, we picked a tool, it's great, let's use it. It's running on my system, it's running on my machine. But once you would like to integrate it into a CI/CD pipeline, or you want to integrate it in a more like sophisticated testing infrastructure, it's failing. And then you have to start all over again. That's important that you have to keep in mind. And last but not least, you should also, of course, get the support and the buy-in from the developers. But because I think that it's really tough for you as a lonely software tester, if you're working alone in a team, to compete with the development power in terms of traditional manual testing, test automation, test data generation, and so forth and so forth. So that's why it's important to get the support from the developers. Also involve them already in the selection process of the tool, because then they will also help you in writing the automated scripts. Yeah, so that's important. Okay, that's so far for the automation challenge for this webinar. Now I would like to talk about the mobile testing scenarios. Yeah, and also what I mentioned before, that, for example, the environment has a huge impact on your testing. Yeah, where you test an app has this huge impact on the testing result. I brought 3 examples on the next slide. So it's important to define your testing activities and to find the right location. Where do you want to test? Yeah, because I mean, the office is cozy and nice, and maybe home office or office, depending where you're working from. But this is always, in most cases for mobile, it's the wrong environment, because you always have a strong internet connection. You have the same surrounding area elements that have a direct influence to the product. And that's why it's important you have to leave the office and to test the app outside in the real environment where your customers will use it in the long run. Yeah. So that's why the app use cases and purpose should guide you to find the right testing spots. Yeah, that's brings us back again to you need to know who is your customer, what are the mobile users, where are they using your product, and if you know that, you can also plan your testing activities around this. When I was once in a mobile team working on an app, we were building an app that was, with the app you were able to book a bus to travel. Of course, I had to ride the bus and to test it, right? I mean, because there was like a planned route that the bus has taken every day. And while doing this, while testing on the bus, I found so many issues because of no internet connection, slow internet connection, or I don't know whatever I found there. It was amazing to see what can happen in the real life world rather than sitting in a nice and warm office with a strong internet connection. So that's why it's important to test environment to keep in mind. That's what I said already. Depending on the app use case and location, it differs from app to app, and the tech stack also influences the testing scenarios. Yeah, and here are three examples that I usually talk about. Is the first one is this slope, like being in a winter ski resort area where you can go skiing or snowboarding. On top of a mountain, you might have a really strong internet connection, but down in the valley, you might have no. So what's going to happen with your app, or how is your app handling the cold winter, the cold or the using with the clothes? Can you interact with elements? So these are all things that should guide you in your testing strategy in order to map out and outline the perfect scenarios for you and for testing activities. Another extreme is the example with on the beach. Yeah, should be like you have strong sunlight, so you can really hardly see stuff on the screen. So this might be something for your designers to think about. Maybe you have to enlarge the control elements or use different colors in order to compensate for this scenario. And the last one I already spoke about is the city environment, like what's going to happen in the city if you ride a train, underground trains, for example. What's going to happen with your product? Is it crashing? Is it showing the data correctly? How is it handling slow internet connections and so forth and so forth? Yeah. So the environment is an extreme has an extreme impact on your testing scenarios. Yeah. So what else can you do when you would like to talk about test against mobile? So I brought some of the scenarios here as well. Is interrupt testing something that you can perform? You can check for permissions. You can check the device standby. How is the device handling of standby mode? So putting the device in foreground, background, the app, and see how it reacts. Sensors we already spoke about. Accessibility testing is becoming a huge topic in the next few years. Security is always important. Or third-party apps. How are third parties interacting or influencing your product? We once had an issue with a third-party app, and we got really bad reviews actually in the app stores. And it's like, what's going on there? I tested it. It's working out fine. And then we reached out to that customer and found out that that person had installed the third-party keyboard app. And this keyboard app was just higher than the default keyboard app that was running on the operating system. And our app was just like stupid or was not handling this situation. So the keyboard app was blocking a really important control UI element. So the user wasn't able to use it. So that's why it's important. It was, for me, it was an aha moment saying, okay, I need to test also against third-party apps, at least to keep them in mind. Gestures is important to keep in mind on, right? You have multiple fingers that you can use, multitasking. Another example I usually talk about is the battery. To not talk about all of these now is battery consumption. So is your app using too much battery or eating up too much battery? This is something users hate. They will immediately go away, delete the app, and leave a bad review. You should also keep in mind that some of the devices or manufacturers, when you reach a certain battery level, let's say 10%, for example, they cut out or like to turn off hardware features such as vibration mode, for example, or GPS. So in case you reach that battery level, how is your app handling the situation? Yeah? So something you should keep in mind when testing. On the other side, what happens when we talk about local storage? What happens if the mobile device has no capacity left and you would like to operate on big images, on big files on the app? Is the app handling that situation? Is it showing a proper message to the user? Is it guiding the user to maybe go to the storage system and to delete some apps? These are scenarios you should keep in mind when testing against mobile. If, of course, your app is using this capacity of a phone. And because of that is the different scenarios, I usually say, okay, we need to invest lots of time in manual testing on mobile. That's why I also created this cheat sheet that you can find on my blog later on, or you can also go to my blog and search for mobile testing cheat sheet. It's free for you to use. I brought all the scenarios you can't read here, myself included. But it's something that you should keep in mind that mobile testing requires lots of manual testing still. Of course, you can do lots of automation and use, for example, Pcloudy as a cloud provider to decrease the complexity of fragmentation. But at the end, you have to test the app in the environment your customers will use it, right? Because your customers, they don't use your app always in a strong internet connection. Yeah, that's why it's important to test in a real environment. That's why it's also important maybe to establish a beta testing community to get early feedback for your apps. You can do internal testing with colleagues. Also something that I've done in the past in the company I was working for is we were blocking the app in the App Store, saying, okay, you are not allowed to download this app, and you have to go to our internal app and to download the alpha versions to give us feedback. Yeah, that's important. Automate the easy part, I mentioned it already, and then of course get help and support from experts in case you don't know where to start and how to start with mobile testing. Okay, so far for the testing scenarios. So now let's get into the releasing of a mobile product, and I brought for you some slides. So that's why I would like to talk about why is it important to release mobile products frequently. Users expect, of course, a bug-free app. We all know there is no such thing as bug-free software, but users expect it. They have high expectations, as we have seen at the beginning of the webinar. They tend to remove the app really quickly. So that's why you have to be really careful with the quality and the testing. In order to release more frequently, what I would usually suggest is you have to have planned code freezes for app releases to help your organization, your company, your team to ship products frequently and to give teams guidance for teams. This is especially the case when we talk about in a second on the scaling topic. Defined code freezes help teams to organize the activities around those dates. And we come to that in a second in an example. It's helpful to have, for example, regular releases, for example, every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks, once you have done your agile methodologies, your Scrum, your Kanban approach, depending what you're doing, every 2 weeks you do a public release. This tend to be helpful, at least when we're in the teams that I was working with. When working with multiple teams, in the blue color here, working with release trains can help. And I will show you also an example of release train in a second, how you can use that one. Every team then should, of course, catch the train if they would like to release and would be part of the release. And last but not least, you should freeze the code. So the planned code freezes that you do should be done automatically, to avoid late passengers. With late passengers, what I meant is if you have no code freeze automatic in place, then maybe 1 minute before the code freeze or 1 minute after the code freeze, people come, late passengers running on a track and they would like to catch the train. And this is usually not the best thing because this code tend to be not tested. So that's something you should keep in mind when introducing some processes in releasing mobile products more frequently. So I already mentioned the mobile release train. Also, I wrote a blog post on that thing. But what is a mobile release train? So mobile release train is a planned code freeze that teams can plan the activities around. It has planned and fixed release dates, and it defines a clear process on how to get into that release train. That's important, especially if you're scaling your mobile activities across many, let's say across 10, 15 or more teams. You have to have clear processes how to be part of that mobile release. Because once you scale across the organization, in most cases, you have one central team focusing on the infrastructure, on building the app and releasing the app. And this train helps the team in order to organize everything. The train should always be on time. There should be no excuse. And missing the train means you have no feature live in the next upcoming release. Yeah, that's important. It's a tough challenge to introduce such processes. I've faced it myself, but it's worth it, to introduce such a process in order for scaling and to have a high quality product out there. Yeah, because if you imagine you have like 10, 15 teams working on a mobile product and only one team is failing, it completely crashes the app maybe, and then all the other teams might suffer as well because the users are not using the product anymore or they can't use it. So that's why it's important to have this clear process in place, and never accept late pass. That's important. Okay, here's an example release train for you. So in this example, we have 10 days of coding. So after the 10 days, we have an automatic release saying we have the master branch, we take everything from master, create a release branch, test on that release branch, everything automated, do some last manual checks there, and then we are good to go. So once the 10 days, and then maybe the next day we do the testing activities, we can already upload to Google and Apple. Because on Apple side, it takes a few more days in order for the review process. And once we're waiting for Apple to review this process, we can already have a beta testing in place. So once you have a beta testing, for example, established, you can push that app already to these customers already to get some early on feedback. Once you have accepted or you got reviewed from the Play Store, from the App Store and the Play Store, you can decide, okay, let's go for 20% of our users. So we use a stage rollout system saying we roll out to 20% of our users for 2 days, just to see. It's like a traditional smoke test. See, is there some smoke coming out somewhere? Is the app crashing? So we do monitoring and so forth and so forth. And then we roll out to 50 and 100%. And after the code freeze, so after this phase, the teams already start over with coding. And with that, you have rolling releases that you have to go on and follow up on. And that's helpful. So what is happening? Once you release the app, of course, you should monitor the app release, check social media, check the crash logs, check the KPI dashboards that you have in place to see if the app fulfill your KPIs, your defined goals, in order to see that everything is running out fine. And this is also something that you have to do. Some tasks, somebody has to take over this role. Yeah, and in case you have to, you see a critical bug or a critical issue, you have to react faster, because otherwise you lose your customers. Yeah, so that's important. Okay, and now last but not least, we're coming to the scaling mobile testing across the organization topic. So how would you like to scale? And basically, scaling depends on 3 topics. The first one is people. Mobile knowledge in all disciplines is important for scaling. So you have to train your people. You have to invest in time, in trainings, in education to get the mobile skills to your people. Yeah, and to also get rid of the web thinking, especially in the beginning, 2010, 2011, when people came from web development into mobile development, they were still thinking like a web developer or web engineer or web user, and this has to be changed. Yeah, so finding the right people with mobile development skills isn't easy. That's why you need to invest a lot of time in that position to scale, because once you have this mobile mindset and quality mindset in the company, it's much easier for scaling. The second topic is the tech stack. Yeah, I mentioned already a couple of times, is invest time to analyze the mobile tech stack. This is something you all have to know. Yeah, is it the same in all teams? Is a question you should ask, because if it's not the same in all teams, it might be a potential risk in terms for quality, for releasing, and for sustainable growth for your product. So streamline the tech stack across the whole company, the standards, standard tools, standard pipelining processes, and so forth and so forth. And every team should use the same tools, because only then you can go in the same direction, and to scale across multiple teams, add more teams to it, add more people, and so forth. Of course, educate the teams in the different tools, also a big topic, coming back to the people topic a bit, and because then it's much easier to scale and to become faster. And last but not least, of course, you also need to provide guidance in using, for example, CI/CD or cloud devices or the latest testing frameworks and so forth and so forth. So that's why I usually recommend customers to actually embed a platform team, use a central platform team that is taking over this complete analysis of the tech stack and also supporting the tool selection process. Yeah. And last but not least, what's important for scaling is communication. I mean, this sounds maybe boring, and you have heard it like 1 trillion times already in other directions, but communication is still one of the most important things to scale across an organization, because you have lots of stakeholders you have to talk. Yeah, you have not only the release testing and release process to establish these processes with other developers, with other product designers. You have to streamline everything, but you also have the customers on the other side. You have the stakeholders on this side, and communication is key. So you have to balance out everything. And this is important for testers as well, because we need to talk to developers, product design, and so forth. So that's why it's important to have strong communication skills, and something that you should always also try out to filter in the hiring process, to see how this person can communicate. And it is the last point I already mentioned before, is establish a central platform team to handle releases, the tooling and the infrastructure, because this helps you in the long run to be successful and to ship a great product. And with that, we come to the takeaways for today's webinar. And these are, as you have seen, mobile technology, they have changed our lives. The mobile market is still growing, still something to keep in mind. So whenever you start now with mobile, it's not too late. You can still grow. You can still reach millions of customers, billions of customers actually, and to have a good solid product with high revenues. Keep in mind that mobile users have a high expectation to your product and services. So they don't like to see app crashes, slow internet connections, and so forth. So that's important to get to know your customers and interact with them. When I was working in one company, we were inviting every 4 weeks, we're inviting real customers to our department, and we're asking them real questions in front of us, having a coffee with them, showing them prototypes. And this is really helpful to interact and to get to know them. Define your test scenarios based on your app and tech stack. It's important. We have seen it in some examples. Identify your personal challenges, not personal in terms of your person as a human being, but the personal one within your team, within your company. Start simple in every section, being it manual testing, being it test automation, being it pipelines, and also from time to time reconsider your approach, because the mobile market is changing, the tooling market is changing, and always have an ear, on the and listen to what's going to happen out there. Get help from experts to educate your people in case you don't have them. Scaling requires processes and more communication. I mean, this is something that people usually hate when you start introducing your more processes, but especially for mobile, it's important to have these processes in place. Otherwise, you will lose in the long run. Yeah. And then, of course, last but not least, take small steps when scaling across the organization. Don't do too many things at the same time, because this is also something people don't like. So start easy, maybe with one team, with 2 teams, see what approach is working, and then grow bigger and start accelerating your business, basically. And with that, I would say thank you very much for attending the webinar. Let me know your questions. I've seen already 2. Not sure if there are more questions. Looking forward to them. Should I directly go into the questions? Okay, I'll go directly into them. Pooja is asking how to come up with a test strategy when app releases are frequent. How to overcome the when app releases are frequent? Yeah, when they are frequent, of course. Then when I was working in a mobile team, we had app releases every 2 weeks. And I was also working not only in one mobile team on products, but we had also 30 teams developing or shipping every 2 weeks a product on mobile. And we use these processes actually to, first of all, to guide the shipment or like the product releases. And then we were always like talking in the discovery phases and refinement phases of the next product cycle. What is the product all about? And on which level we would like to test. So I was always including the developers, saying, okay, what are the parts you would like to automate? What are the parts that I should automate? What are the parts that we need to test on? Yeah, so this was something that we were doing in an agile way every 2 weeks. And of course, before we usually do like a big kickoff with, let's say we were going for a new milestone in the app. We sit together and had a kickoff, 1-day kickoff, and we were doing we were outlining basically the development strategy and the testing strategy. And we were noting down on Miro or on any other tool that is available there. And we were outlining what we would like to do. And then we were making this transparent, not within our team, not only within our team, but within the whole company. And this helped a lot actually to have a solid test strategy and to adapt and to get participants in there. We were doing test sessions, bug bashes from time to time, to eliminate the different problems that we've seen. Helped a lot. But yeah, you need some time for doing that. I hope it answers the question. There's a second one. Is there any certification to become a software tester? Yeah, there are plenty of them. I mean, there's like, just use your favorite web browser search engine and search for software testing certificates. There are like plenty of them out there. They're even for mobile. Yeah, so depending on what you're looking for, there are some that you can do and have multiple choice exams. There are some that you can do into like a study that you can work with multiple testers and have a written exam later on. So there are multiple ones. Just search them. Yeah, you will find them easy. Next one, also again from Pooja. Can we use cloud services like Pcloudy to test apps in low network? Yes, I think so. You can do it. Of course, you can usually. I'm missing the word now. You can throttle it. That was the word I was missing. You can throttle the bandwidth of the connection of the device. You can say, okay, I would like to emulate the slow internet connection or no internet connection. This is something you can do. Yeah. Next one. How to test for battery usage related cases? Should it be real time or is there some cloud service available? Not sure about cloud services available. Maybe Geraldine, you know, I'm not sure if you guys support this on Pcloudy, but I can tell you that what I have done is that you can use, for example, the IDEs or Android Studio or Xcode, for example. You can use some profiling tools there to see what the battery usage is all about, to see if you have like long-running processes or threads that are consuming too much battery. And what I was also doing sometimes from time to time, I was just taking two devices with the same hardware software combination. I was using the release product on one device and the new release candidate on the second device. Both phones were charged 100%. And then I was using the product simultaneously, manually on both devices. And then I was checking, is the battery consumption different? This is just some gut feeling battery test, but this is already it gives you some indication already if this is something you would like to do. Yeah. Okay. Which software is used to test mobile app? What do you mean with software? I mean, software in terms of test automation, for building test automation. You can use Appio, Maestro, you can use Espresso, XC-Test, XUI Test, Earl Grey, Calabash, Selenium. So there are multiple tools that you can use actually in order to automate against mobile apps. But these are tools for writing test automation scripts, but you can also use tools such as a proxy tool, for example, to check the traffic between the app and the backend. You can use a tool like Postman, for example, to the API. You can use ADB, which is a built-in Android debugging bridge on Android, to do some really quick and easy tests on a mobile device. So like there's lots of devices, not a lot of devices, a lot of tools out there for mobile that you can use actually. There are more questions. What are the tools for performance testing for mobile apps? Performance testing is difficult because you have to keep in mind that the mobile app has basically three layers that it depends on. So the first one is the app itself. The second one is the network that is handling the data transmission. And the third one is the backend. So usually an app relies on a backend service. So you need to do performance tests on at least the app and the backend, because the network is sometimes hard to performance test because you rely on mobile data networks. So I suggest usually to use a backend tool or like a tool for testing your performance on the backend systems. Like, I don't know, there's JMeter or other tools that you can use out there for doing performance tests. On mobile apps, you can use also similar tools. I don't have them in mind right now, but there are also performance testing tools that you can use for mobile apps. And then you can see where you have the bottlenecks. Yeah. This tool is paid or free. The tools I mentioned, some of them are free, some of them are paid. Yeah, so it depends. Just search out. Also, I think I did some YouTube videos on mobile testing tools. You can also follow up there to see what tools you can use and what they're used for and good for. Yeah. Okay, are there any more questions? I don't think so. If you have more questions, you can also find me online on my LinkedIn or on Twitter. Search for my name, and I bet you will find me. And you can ask me questions, send me messages. Happy to help out in terms you have questions.
Thank you, Daniel, for answering those
You're
questions.
welcome.
It's quite an interactive session, and for the great presentation as well. So it was a pleasure having you with us today. And I'm sure our audience gained a lot of expertise and insights on mobile app testing from your talk. So that's all for today, I guess. Thank you all for attending. So we hope you found the webinar to be valuable and informative. Remember to keep breaking free and pushing the boundaries of what's possible in the QA industry. So see you at the next Break Free webinar. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.